So, looks like we're ready to go. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item up is approval of agenda. If everyone's happy with it, I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Justin, are you ready to approve it? Move it.
Sorry, I move to approve.
I appreciate that, Justin. Looking for a seconder.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll ask for the vote to be called. Catherine, please.
Thank you. Mike and
Yes.
Justin Pennings,
Yes.
Councillor Giguere,
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
All right. Thank you for that. Next item is adoption of our minutes from November the 19th. Are there any errors, omissions, discussion on them? Not seeing anyone moving, so again, looking for a motion to accept them.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Second by?
I can second.
Thank you, Dominique. Moved and seconded. Ready for the vote, please, Catherine.
Thank you. Mike Andrews,
Yes.
Justin Pennings,
Yes.
Councillor Giguere,
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Catherine. Item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Not seeing or hearing any, we'll declare that matter done with. Item 4, summary and highlights. Canada's Rural and Remote Broadband Conference, Fall 2020. Councillor Giguere, Vice Chair. First off, Dominic, I want to thank you for your attendance to that and providing the advance notice of it. It's a good reading. So please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, the report is before you. I will say that I don't think there were a lot of new information from previous conferences, but it's always good to see how things are evolving and some of the concepts being reinforced. I would say that of the highlights that I provided, some things to remember, I think, for us as we continue to move forward is the whole concept of differentiating between short and long-term goals. And it's important to have both, and short-term solutions as well as long-term solutions. And understanding that it does take energy and time, but a focused effort. And a lot of different speakers spoke to the advantage of having a group like we have created, that it's definitely the way to go. And so we're on the right track, and because it does help with that focused effort. Other key point is to make sure you plan, and try to forecast the demand. So again, with that long-term view and the big picture view, and to ensure also that you engage with surrounding municipalities, which I think we're doing. The other reminder is to make sure that we define what our objective is. So there could be different objectives, and it would be good perhaps at some point to review our action plan and to decide. It's one thing to design an Elgin solution, but a solution to what? And I think we've done a good job, and we're on the path of collecting a lot of information about what the problems are. And then I think the next logical step, and this was a good reminder of that, is to then define what is actually our objective, short and long term, and then continue to plan for a solution. So that was a good reminder. Good reminder to also educate ourselves. So there's an interesting resource, which I think we're doing, but I think we can also encourage our colleagues to do the same, and with the local municipal partners as well. So there's an interesting resource from Corning University, and so it's free, and there are a lot of different videos and tutorials on different concepts, and I think I would recommend it. I've only had a chance to review a few. And another thing I think we are working on, but it sounds like the municipality has a role in advocating for closing information gaps. And this was discussed, I think it came up during the forum, that there's one of the speakers said there's absolutely no excuse for not sharing information about dark fiber, about where everything is. There are existing models in Europe where the federal government has mandated the sharing of that information, and so it's not an unreasonable request. The speaker mentioned that information, our federal government already has it, so we need to push and advocate that there's more information be released. And at the end of the day, the solution is to partner, and to not overlook any potential stakeholder or player that may not be obvious. As was mentioned, even the television or radio broadcasters, but just to make sure we don't leave, like I said, anyone overlooked as a potential partner. So those are my highlights of another nice full day of connectivity talk.
Appreciate your comments, and I'd open the floor to questions or comments to Dominique. Don't be shy. Okay. I know there was good effort put in there, and I thank you for that. I think we're all better for that knowledge. If anyone comes up with questions, please reach out and ask Dominique. It's appreciated.
And Al as well. I want to say Al, our staff.
Al Reed, absolutely. I overlooked that. Thanks for reminding me of that. Item number 5, summary of the Mountain Connect virtual conference. I'm looking at Carolyn. Please go ahead.
So as a part of the Mountain Connect conference that I attended a session on digital government strategy in the age of COVID. And the presenters from the City of Boston and City of Fair Lawn discussed how the pandemic disrupted government operations and how they were required to adapt those operations on a day-to-day basis. And as a part of their presentation, they discussed the transition to online learning. The City of Boston deployed temporary solutions to get all students connected. While the city had good connectivity, approximately 5% of students didn't have a stable home environment and didn't have access to good connectivity. The city supplied those students with devices and hotspots and made a 1-year commitment to purchase home broadband services for those students. In the City of Fair Lawn, Ernie Stanton discussed the establishment of Fair Lawn Gig, a municipal broadband utility. 4 years ago, the city decided to provide fiber to the home of every Fair Lawn resident. They took out $10.1 million from their general fund without any payback requirements to build the infrastructure, and they now pass every home in Fair Lawn and service 60% of those homes. They charge a service fee, but try to keep it as low as possible. Currently, their revenue is greater than their operating expenses, and the surplus is used for upgrades, including upgrades that were required by the increased use during the pandemic. So currently, they have a satisfaction score of up to 89%, and Ernie credits the local service provided for this high level of satisfaction. And in another session that I attended, the director of the Wi-Fi program in San Mateo County discussed how they got students ready for remote learning as well. And they took a similar approach to Elgin County for the rural areas. They established hot spots where students could come and connect to the internet and do their online learning. And they discussed the challenges that they were facing to come up with more permanent solutions. And those challenges included terrain, trees, and low population density. And Benny Lee, the manager of the Wi-Fi program, emphasized that a more permanent solution would take a lot of time, commitment, and partnership in the community. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. Questions for Carolyn? Interesting to note that we're all trying to get internet, but it's we do not have to invent the wheel. It's not new. Everyone's got the same problem, so it's not a secret solution. We just keep sharing and getting information. No questions for Carolyn? You're getting off easy today. Good job. I'm right down to correspondence. A plan to better connectivity, Rome launches municipal broadband resources. You're right. Stand corrected. We'll go back to discussion, question, feedback. Open that up. Catherine, you're taking that?
I
Go
am.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So this report just discusses the feedback that was received in the 3 small breakout groups from the Internet Forum that the Connectivity Committee ran 2 weeks ago. So after our sessions with the Infrastructure Ontario, the Thames Valley District School Board, Chatham-Kent, and Uplink and North Frontenac ISPs, we reviewed the Internet Connectivity Survey data that the committee had been presented previously. And from that data, the committee had come up with 5 different questions to ask our participants. And when we broke out into the breakout sessions, we discussed those questions, and all of the feedback was collected and put into one document, which was circulated with this report as the attachment. I won't go through every single piece of feedback just for the sake of time, and I'm sure that everyone in attendance has read that document. But we found generally the first question was, how can we encourage better service? So better service in terms of speed and data availability. It turned out that it seems that there is actually, in some cases, better speeds and more data are available, but it just means that the end user is going to have to pay more money in order to access these services. And at some times they are either unable to do so because the amount is so high, or they don't want to do so. Additionally, sometimes with wireless, there are difficulties in actually providing a higher speed because of barriers like trees. So in a lot of treed areas or areas where the topography is very hilly, the towers need to be a lot higher, and there need to be more frequency of towers. So those were a little bit of a summary of some of the answers received in that section. The second question was, how can we increase competition? Across the board, it was discussed that it is difficult for a smaller ISP to make headway in an area that is already covered by a larger ISP, just because in order to make headway there and to get new customers, they would have to take customers away from an existing organization, which would mean that they'd have to offer their service either at a much lower price or at a much higher price. So that can be a bit of an entry barrier, we found out, but also we did find out that increased support for these smaller ISPs and funding and helping to support their applications for senior levels of funding will help them out and will help them to enter the market in our area. The third question was about customer service in particular, and it was discussed that customer service tends to be a bit asymmetrical. Customer service at the smaller ISPs is a lot more responsive. These ISPs are in our area. They are made up by people who live in our communities or close by, and their reputations are very important to them, and they want to provide good customer service. So they are a lot more responsive. It is a lot more difficult to get good customer service from a larger ISP who isn't close by in the area and has less of an interest in providing individualized customer service. Another important point that was discussed under this question is that there might be a role for the municipality in helping to explain to residents who they need to go to when they're experiencing customer service issues. There might be a bit of a knowledge gap there. For example, if there is wireless infrastructure on a hydro pole and there's a storm or a vehicle accident takes out a hydro pole and there's an outage there, there will be an outage with the internet, whereas the resident may call their internet service provider, and the internet service provider also might be waiting for that service to be restored as well, and it would be the hydro company. So providing a bit of education as to who provides what service and where residents can go to complain when their service is down or their service is poor also would help in them getting better customer service. And also providing a list of different ISPs and different internet services that are available in the area that our residents could be able to access was also listed under that section. Another section discussed what does municipal advocacy look like. There was also quite a bit of talk about advocating on behalf of the small ISPs, on behalf of their projects that when they've applied to senior levels of government for funding. Also possibly addressing the flaws in the existing funding models at the senior levels of government. One of the common discussion topics was that smaller ISPs at sometimes don't even qualify for funding because they don't have enough funding in the bank to match any funding that they may receive. So that precludes them from receiving this funding and then, of course, from providing service in our area. So possibly addressing the flaws in these funding models, helping to advocate on behalf of the ISP, particularly when they have actually put in an application. Perhaps the municipality could help to support them in that as well. And of course, funding for small ISPs also came up under this question. And finally, our last question that we asked was, what does a Made in Elgin solution look like? It was very important to the attendees at the forum that a Made in Elgin solution consider all needs in Elgin County. So not only what do residents need, but also what does our industry need? What do farmers need and what do small businesses need? So we need to figure out that so that we can help to find out how to provide that as well. Additionally, we need to consider Elgin's unique geography and topography. So our hills, our treed areas, that will really make a difference in what type of solution that we implement. And overall, all three groups advocated for some sort of a hybrid solution. So where fiber is able to be installed, that would be great, but there may be issues getting fiber to the very last mile. So this might look like fiber and then supplemented with further with wireless. So that in a nutshell is the feedback, but the entire feedback document incorporating all feedback from all three groups is attached for the committee's review. And I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I'll make
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Catherine, there was a comment in the material or in the feedback. I believe it was in there anyway, not from a previous session about an MTO crossing costing $400,000, and that did come from comments that I had made, but it reads as if that's an MTO cost, and that was not actually anything to do with the MTO per se. It was the cost that it was from a contractor actually, so that was a construction cost. Just wanted to clarify that MTO permitting is relatively, it's not terribly bad, I guess, but the processes can be horrible and working through them. But as far as the permitting costs, they're not really prohibitive. The working through the machine is. So that cost was not an MTO cost. It was a contractor's cost to actually make the crossing.
We can make sure to make that a little bit more clear in the document and then repost it to the website as well.
The unlikely event that some of our friends from MTO happen to be reading that, they might be somewhat surprised by that. So I thought I'd clarify that for folks.
Thank you, Mike. I'll make a comment. We had a request at Central Elgin just recently, and it's a person seeking access to our water towers, both in Port Stanley and Belmont. And I think it was an opportunity. I won't speak for staff, but staff have a job to protect our assets. So it's sort of that natural, what's the risk? And I think maybe we have a role here because what I'm hearing is we have an opportunity, this group, to loosen those, we don't want to endanger our assets, but if we can help, that's part of the solution. So I think we may think different in this forum because we've went through this. Some of our lower municipalities, if the requests come for water towers, they may not be we may need to educate them that there are advantages to that. I don't want to speak for anyone else, and I can't answer that technical, whether, if we have SCADA equipment on the water tower, if someone puts an antenna up, is that going to interfere? Those are technical things that that's a job that staff will have to look into. So, but if it is compatible, I think we need to send a message that that's part of the solution. Just my comments. Maybe Mike, you could answer that because that's a question that's going to come up. Will an antenna up there interfere with because the SCADA equipment is expensive and very important.
It is.
Are we putting ourselves at risk?
Yeah. Ironically, actually, if there's service providers looking to put wireless equipment on the wider towers, if it's linked to a fiber interconnection, the good news of that is that the SCADA equipment can be converted over to a fiber application. In fact, that we did that down in both Dutton, Dunwich and West Elgin, where we interconnected the water towers with fiber, and Ontario Clean Water converted their wireless system over to the fiber network, so it eliminated that issue. But there's absolutely potential for interference between not just that equipment, which is the most important, obviously, but other service providers. So having multiple providers on a single can be an issue, but it also can be overcome because there are different frequencies that can be used. So, but it's certainly something to always take into consideration. Both Dunwich and West Elgin were very cooperative with us at the time as far as accessing the water towers, and actually part of it was driven by them and that aqua need for better connectivity for their SCADA systems. So.
Okay, I appreciate that because I know we have one counselor suffering with terrible internet, and perhaps if there was he could bounce off the water tower in Port Stanley. That has been said out loud, but we're tasked at council to make those decisions. We're probably not equipped with the knowledge to make those things, so we're relying on the technical people to give us good advice. But if we can cooperate, I think we need to send that message that if this is part of the solution and help people have better access, why not do it? But further questions of Catherine? Okay, thank you, Catherine. A good summary. Now I think we can go to correspondence. A path to better connectivity. Is that just a heads up? Okay. Certainly, so this is.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. So I would encourage everybody to read those two documents from Roma if you haven't already. It's nothing new again, but I think being reframed in a very specific context of a municipal goal. And I was wondering even if the committee would be open to look at the roadmap that is proposed, and since we've made a lot of progress on our action plan, I would think that perhaps in the new year we want to review what our progress is. And I thought maybe that might be an opportunity to map or correlate our action plan to the proposed roadmap, which I think is very comprehensive, and I think we're on the right track. But I thought since this tool already exists, perhaps we can align it and then identify what are our next steps. So that's a suggestion for your consideration.
Thank you. And Alan Thompson, Mayor Caledon, is a member of our SWIFT board. And I don't know if he's chair of Roma, now or past chair, but anyway, he's a very strong advocate for advancing broadband, and certainly a big pusher of this sharing information and knowledge, etc. So they're a big pusher of this, so good to hear, because again, we're all looking for the same answer. But any other comments on that? I think we're getting down to our end of our meeting. Is there anything further? Okay. Do we want to pick a date for our next meeting? That'd be a good idea to. We're looking at some holidays here. Are we looking into January?
We are, yes, and I would suggest that it take place sometime after January 12th, which is the county council meeting, as council will have to review committee appointments at that time.
All right, so we're looking, do you want to pencil in the 14th or the 21st? Everyone got their calendar there? Are we 14th or 21st are open for me, but I don't know how your schedules are.
I'm open for both.
I can do
I'm
both.
open for both as well.
Will that give staff enough time, or do you want to go to the 21st?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to committee members, I guess it depends on the committee's expectations of staff and whether there is some pre-work that is required on behalf of staff to prepare for, to kind of overlay the committee's work with the roadmap, as Councillor Jaguar pointed out, or whether this meeting will be a working meeting where the committee kind of starts that work. So seeking direction from the committee on that, and that will help us assess whether the 14th is a reasonable date for us.
Okay. Open for suggestions. You know, I think if we just take stock of where we've come in the last 2.5 months, I think we should be proud. I have to thank staff. It's been incredible. We've gathered a lot of information in a very short time. We've put this out as the huge priority for our residents, and I think we publicly need to let people know that we've been going hard at this. But please make a suggestion whether you want the 14th, 21st.
I would be happy for the meeting to be more of a working session of doing an inventory of everything that has been done. And then together as a committee, doing that correlation to the roadmap, and the same way the committee as a whole did identify action items, then I think it would be appropriate for the whole committee to have that discussion of, okay, so now what are new action items now that we've checked off so many? So in that light, I would recommend the 14th, and with the main agenda being more of that working session. That's my suggestion.
Certainly, I'm fine with that. Mike, Justin?
I think that's a good suggestion. I think the 21st is an entire month, and that's a long while. I'm afraid we may lose momentum, and again, in deference to staff and the workload, and they have done an enormous amount. It's certainly, it's amazing how much support there is from the county for this. So pretty pleasing. But yeah, I would advocate for the 14th and concur with Councillor Jaguar.
We are going to give them Christmas Day and Boxing Day off, so. I think that's a good idea. Let's pencil in the 14th. Again, it's a busy time of year, and I'll thank staff and the committee. And we have a couple of members away today. Hopefully they'll be back, and we'll be ready to keep it going. But with that, I want to take the opportunity that it's hard to believe the calendar, how fast it's going, but stay safe, everyone, and have a good holiday. So with that, I'll call for an adjournment. So, do we need a mover? Looking for a mover. Justin's got his hand up. Mike, please call the vote, Catherine.
Mike Andrews,
Yes.
Justin Pennings, Councillor Jiguer,
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes,
4-0, the motion is carried.
we are adjourned. Take care.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.